You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
What is up, folks? Welcome to a very, very special episode of the podcast. This one, I can't tell you how excited I am about this. This has been in the works for a very long time. Today, I am talking to my friends Sean Arbow and Scott Marquart. Sean Arbow from Gunstreet Wiring Shop, who's been a big supporter of this podcast for literally years. We've become friends, and we've become friends in a capacity that is not at all unlike the capacity that Scott and I are friends. And that is a very unique circumstance, and it all has happened because of the podcast. We're going to tell the story, but I think just to preface everything, it's best if I just say the easy version right at the top. Gunstreet is now a part of the Stringjoy family. No, Sean's not going anywhere. He is still running the show over there. But we thought with our powers combined, we could really do something special. The ink has been dry on the deal for several months, but we've been working really hard behind the scenes to basically prepare for the future. There's some really cool stuff on the horizon, and we talk about it on this episode. But I wanted to get these guys both on an episode because the podcast is sort of the hub for all of this. If the podcast had never existed, Scott and I would have never become business partners. And now I can say the same thing for Sean, Scott, and I. If this podcast was not a thing and you weren't here supporting it and you weren't here listening to it and hearing my voice right now, then literally these opportunities would never have materialized. They never would have presented themselves. It wouldn't have happened. It all comes back to this show. So I thought it would be really appropriate to get them both on to tell their version of the story, because we all have sort of our own little internal version of how it happened. And I wanted to get the three of us together to explain to the public what's happening, how it happened, and the ideas and the goals moving forward. I don't think anything like this has really come about in the exact same way in this industry. You know, it's kind of this weird collaboration between different sectors of the guitar industry and a media outlet, which is the Tone Mob. And it's very strange. I don't think I've ever seen it come together in quite this same way. So I thought it would be fun to get these guys on. These are my buds, these are my dudes, and they're my business partners. And I wanted to get them on to explain how they saw it all coming together and maybe give some peeks into the visions for the future, and just wanted to get everything out there so people could know about it and hopefully be as excited as we are. So I guess I should stop talking so I can start talking to my friends Sean and Scott. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have two of my very best dudes, Scott Marquart and Sean Arbow of Stringjoy and Gunstreet. And we're all just one big happy family now. We kind of thought it would be fun to get you two on and tell the tale. What do you guys think?
Sounds fun.
When you call, Blake, I am wherever you ask me to be right away and for as long as you need me.
I think it's like backwards of that, though. I feel like it goes the other way around. All of a sudden you called me on a Monday and the next day I was in Nashville folding boxes and stuff. So it's a little bit of sweeping up backwards. Sweeping up, miscounting things, taping up things, running printers that I don't know how to run. The whole 9 yards. It was
you did a great job.
It was splendid.
You're too hard on yourself.
Somebody's got to be. Everyone else is too nice to me. So I thought it would be a good time to get both of you on, because now, like I said in the intro, we're all kind of one big happy family. And if this is people's first exposure to that, well, we'll try to tell the tale as best we can. But Gunstreet is a part of the Stringjoy family now. And I thought it was kind of an interesting story to tell because it's a bit unusual, I think, for a bunch of people who would have never otherwise known each other to come together and all of a sudden realize how similar we are. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
pretty much. Yeah.
I thought maybe
it'll be fun to unpack and try to figure out, how it happened. Because on our end, it's all been kind of natural and free flowing, but then you're like, how did this happen? And you're like, oh, well, that takes me, I have to go back 8 years to when I met Sean outside of a Vietnamese restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was clutching a banh mi like it was his child. Yeah. So I think I will start with my perspective because I feel like that might be the earliest stages. So I was already involved with with what company? Stringjoy by this point in time.
That's when we were called String Boy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we did a rebrand.
You were right the first time.
That's right. I came in right around the time of the rebrand. That's why I'm so confused. I still feel like maybe going with the original name would have been a stronger play, but we've already been through that. So
you live and you learn.
Stringman.
Yeah, Stringman.
But then we'd have to have Gun Boy.
Oh, that would have been perfect. Too late now.
There's no way that could go wrong.
I think I read that book one time.
Gun Boy's new album, Street Joy.
Hey, that actually seems like something that might exist.
Probably.
But I'd been doing the podcast for a few years. Scott and I had been working together in a lot of capacities, including on Stringjoy. And along comes somebody named Gunstreet Wiring Shop advertising on a podcast that I listened to, which was the Guitar Nerds podcast, which I became friends with those guys at a later date too. And I thought that's interesting that a company from Bend, Oregon, specializing in guitar parts or guitar electronics, is advertising on a British guitar podcast, which is definitely one of the bigger shows in the genre. It was still just like, Bend, Oregon. That's interesting. And it wasn't too much later, and it was a fairly consistent string of advertisements, and it wasn't too much later that all of a sudden, if I'm remembering correctly, Sean, you appeared in my inbox, just like introducing yourself, and I thought, well, this is this company I've been hearing so much about from Mr. Joe Branton. I guess I gotta take this call, and I think that was one of those calls, not unlike Scott and I's first exposure to each other, where it turned into a very long walking around the neighborhood, climbing up in trees and hanging upside down whilst on the phone for 3.5 hours. And I feel like that's always a good sign when someone's A, willing to take that journey with me, and B, it's interesting enough for the both of us that we just kind of enjoyed the experience, I guess. And you came on the podcast. That was a really, really great episode. You actually came to the Shred Shed. I think that was maybe only the second in-person interview that I had done. And that was really well received.
Yeah. Ironically, my aunt lives like a block from you.
Yeah, that was weird.
Small world.
Yeah, we took a tour around. You're like, my aunt's right over there. And then we went and ate pizza. It was a great experience. Yeah, I know. Shocking. I took my guest out for pizza. But then we just seemed to talk a lot. There wasn't very many people I could go through the business side of the guitar world with in the depth that I like to, besides yourself and Scott. And as the years went on, I'm kind of yada-yadaing a lot of this because it's just a lot of phone calls back and forth, getting to know each other better. You ended up moving to Portland and sponsoring the podcast for a very long time. And then I just had that realization. There's only two people I can talk to like this. It's Sean and Scott. So maybe I should try to get into some sort of relationship like I have with Scott with Sean. And that's kind of where it left off. We had an opportunity to buy a bunch of pickup making equipment. Some of the Tone Mob followers will remember some sneaky posts I made about that back in the day when I had a winder here in the Shred Shed and all that. And that was Ken from Roadhouse Pickups so kindly, bestowing a bunch of pickup knowledge on me, which was probably not the best use of pickup knowledge transfer, and shown me how it worked and sold us all of his equipment, basically. and some of his designs and knowledge as well, which was really, really cool. And that was right about the time Sean and I started talking more seriously about going into business in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you want to take it from there. You have a different perspective on how that unfurled.
Well, I would say one, I did slide into your DMs because I saw that you're from Oregon City, and I was like, hey, there's someone local I could talk to. And then you did call me. You were most people they ended up being always through emails, and you were the very first person to actually call me. And I did literally talk to you for like 4 hours. I had to go to, because I was doing that part-time then, I actually had to go to work. And then I was like, oh God, I need to go. But I'm like, this is a really fun conversation because we're actually getting in, like in the economics of the industry. And then I was like, oh, and luckily you, I think, had another call. So that was my very first fun experience with you. And then, it was one of those, I've always had a very weird relationship with you and Scott because we always tend to kind of be in the same kind of areas, doing the same things, and we all mesh really well together. And about the time when you got the pickup stuff from Ken, I was getting into pickups, or I should say getting back into pickups. Originally, when I was a teenager, like a lot of people, what I did was, hand wind them. And if you know me, I have a little bit of a Hulk grip. So doing the hair thin winding it would take me 3 days to wind a single humbucker, to the point where I'm just like, I should probably wait to do that or find some better technology. And then
I like the implication that anyone who knows you well enough will know that you have such a strong grip. It's unclear to me how that comes up in every relationship eventually. But
my favorite response, anytime someone meets me in person, they go, wow, you're a lot taller than I expected. 6'2", I'm not that tall, but I am fairly tall.
You are pretty tall. I actually forget that.
Yeah, and so I'm tall. Before this job, I was throwing 40-pound boxes of liquor, doing it too much. I was very bulky.
That's actually why I went into business with Blake, because I wanted to be the tall one for once.
Yeah,
I thought you just wanted the crest of his big arms.
Well,
that's the bonus.
The wide, stubby little arms.
Exactly. But yeah, the segue back, we ended up just talking because I started getting back into pickups as you started getting into with Ken stuff, and then it kind of blossomed from there. It's just that weird opportunity of like, our businesses collided, and we all kind of started talking in a way that it just made the most sense of kind of like the brand morals of our companies, like how obsessive Scott is about strings. I tend to be about wiring. It just made so much sense for us to kind of get into that way.
Mm-hmm. And from my perspective, it's funny because Blake, you had told me about Sean a lot over the years before I had ever really talked with him. And the first time I remember talking with you, Sean, was at NAMM. We were at the Earthquaker NAMM party that always existed, and that was the year. It was maybe like the Earthquaker / JHS / somebody else party at the Italian restaurant, where I was mostly out at a table with Jack DeVille all night. But I remember talking with you, Sean, about Michael Porter and some other like very dry business books. Which, if you've ever been to a party like this, to anyone listening, is not what anybody talks about or has ever heard of in their whole lives. Typically, the the guitar market is famously not very businessy, which is one of the great things about it, I think. But I tend to be a lot more fascinated by that stuff, and it was cool to see that Sean very much is that way as well, and is really interested in just business outside of just like how much we love the guitar and the things that go into them and all that. So that was really cool to kind of get to meet Sean through that. And then, just like you guys were saying, I remember Blake calling me up one day and saying, hey, this guy who's a listener wants to sell us like this pickup operation, which hadn't really been in our minds, but we were like, oh, well, these pickups are awesome. And, he was being very generous with what he was kind of offering to us for and willing to give us to help us get running. So we were like, okay, we'll just grab it and see where it goes. I don't know that we really intended to like start a pickup company. We were just like, how can we say no to this? Right.
Yeah.
And then, after a little while of thinking, we were talking about Sean and what he was doing with wiring and starting to do with pickups again. We're like, whoa, anyone who knows how to install a wiring harness knows how to install pickups. And if they're already in there, they're probably thinking about, should I upgrade my pickups at the same time? Like, there just seems like a lot of kind of fit between these two things, offering really cool and interesting pickups as well as really cool and interesting designed wiring harnesses, and kind of making that a package deal for people. And certainly not to be like the synergy, business guy here, but like
synergy.
But one thing I noticed, right, is that most all the wiring harness companies in the industry, they might sell pickups, but they don't really make their own pickups, and vice versa, right? None of the pickup makers also offer wiring harnesses, and so it stands to reason, and I'm excited to kind of discover this in time, that innovating on one side can also kind of beget some innovations on the other side. We're making wiring harnesses that are designed to do things with your pickups that you haven't otherwise. For example, having a wiring harness that can help split coils alongside a pickup that splits coils really nicely and doesn't sound like butt when you split the coil could be really cool. And there's a million other ideas like this, but we're just super excited to kind of see where this all can go. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me about Sean and his approach, as he was saying, is we started our business almost entirely custom, and really kind of offering players the ability to customize their strings and all this sort of stuff. And it seems like what Sean's, been doing for customers has been an extension of that same thing, opening up new possibilities in their guitar that they maybe hadn't thought of, and giving them the opportunities to make their guitar sound and play and function the way they have in their head, which is really just the same kind of mission that we've been on a different side of the guitar.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting too that I didn't emphasize enough this. I should have done this when I was weaving my side of the tale a little bit. The pickups that we're talking about, they're not just any regular, hey, I make PAF clones or something, which are great. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And we will probably explore that in the future. But it was actually Ken from Roadhouse come to us, and he had a very unique set of pickups that didn't exist anywhere else in the aftermarket world. And they're in that blue guitar right back there, which has been like my number one for a long time, my Roni Oceana. And those have Ken's Roadhouse pickups. They look like humbuckers, but they are single coils, and they are rather unique single coils, and you can't easily get those anymore. So it was not just somebody who knew a lot about pickups. It was somebody who actually had a unique story to tell in the pickup world, and had been commissioned by other pretty large companies to do work for them on that side. And so it was an incredible resource to have just come out of nowhere. I can't thank Ken enough for, bestowing some of that knowledge on little old us.
100%. And I mean, I think something that's so great is like the way Sean's brain works and the way he can process information and come up with new interpretations of things. Having that as like a really cool baseline to springboard off, like having a lot of what Ken was able to give us with some of these pickup types is like, okay, we can start there and then build on top of that. It's just really exciting for what we can do, I think, in the pickup world. And I think it's probably not unreasonable for us to announce that we'll be working on those same pickups that you mentioned, Blake, here very soon.
Yeah. Yep. It's already well drawn into the plan. And I really think that more people need to experience these to really understand what they are. And I think that we're just the people to try to kick them out there. So it's really, really exciting.
100%. And something I wanted to talk about Gunstreet's approach a little bit is something that's, I think, also germane to Stringjoy as well, which is like in this market, there are a lot of companies, whether it's pedals, amps, pickups or whatever, that you just kind of make some very small tweak on the same thing and brand it a little bit differently, and then shove that out to the market. And then people talk about it on the forums as it's I've never heard anything that sounds like this, but you totally have. And it's always been like part of you and I, Blake's ethos to like want to actually make a substantial and significant change in anything we put out, wanting to make it different enough that it has its own purpose there. that's something that I loved in those pickup designs. That's not something that's just like, oh, it's a reissue of this 70s K pickup. It is something new and different and exciting. And at the same time, that's something I think that we really find present in Gunstreet as well. And I'd like to, I don't want to be the interviewer here, Blake, on your,
go for
your
it.
show.
No, this is a three-way conversation is all this is.
Something I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, Sean, is what your approach has been to the wiring world, because there are a lot of people that I think it's just like, hey, this is the same Strat circuit. There's some slightly different parts, put it in. You'll never hear your guitar sound like this before. But that's not what your approach has ever really been. I think you've been offering kind of new circuits or new interpretations. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
No, I mean, what's a weird thing to say is I've almost been, I got 2 years away from doing this for 20 years. And I look young, I am young, but I've been doing this a long time. And I, like a lot of people, started out with, I went on the forums, I read all this stuff about, it's the ultimate treble bleed circuit, it's the ultimate pop tolerance, all this kind of classic stuff that I grew up on it. And then I kind of realized that it's not as as players, we end up having this, a sound in our head that we're looking for and we're searching for it. And I never got that. And I got to the point where I had this weird, because I tried everything. I have this weird kind of, I can help people. So my number one thing with Gunstreet was, I know that you have a sound in your head you want to get to. And I'm going to do my best to kind of get that out of you, to get that sound. So I'm not going to say, I'm going to upgrade you just by swapping out. Because sadly, what a lot of people in this industry, in this market do, is they're going to tell you it's an upgrade, which in a lot of times is a part for part copy. And that's not my goal, as in the sense that you're going to basically get the same similar sound. So with Gunstreet, we've always wanted to first educate you into how to use the right language to express what you want to hear. And two, just to kind of just try things. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is it's fun to just try new circuits. There's so many different ways other than doing that 50s vintage circuit that gets you that so-and-so tone, which isn't the full picture. But, if you wire, I have guitars behind me that if someone else were to play, they would be like, that's unplayable. But to my ears, I love. I have a Mustang that right behind me that has it's single coils, but I actually don't have any pots to it. It's just raw output. You wire it in series, so it's a super, super high output. I adjust the phase with that. Again, it's just Gunstreet's number one goal is not to be the classic, I'm just going to upgrade it because that's what I want. It's always to kind of just circuit designing in kind of to spread the gospel of try new things.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me more about what it's like to have a guitar with like no circuit? Like, is there still
it's amazing.
What is still in there basically? Is it just wire hooked up to the output jack? Or?
It's push pull. It's an option. So I can have it. I can do, if I want to do a little bit clean, I have a push pull and it goes straight and you go through. You get the compression of the pot itself, and then when you take it off, there's no compression on the pickups. So you're getting the most unfiltered, especially with single coils, and where I would love to play with the Burnsides with these, is the idea that you get such unique kind of sounds that, especially if you plug it into a pedal, it just gets the most kind of like angelic. It's a wonderful sound. When it comes to like, again, we as players, we're searching for a set sound, and there's so many ways to get whatever you want from that. Wiring pickups in series is like a must for me. I can't not. If it's two humbuckers, I want them in series. I want double output. If it's two single coils, I want them in series. It's just, you can't not have pickups in series in my own ear.
That sounds to me like what we were talking about before the mics went hot, so to speak, where you just need more gain. Right, you just need more gain, and then it'll fix any problems that you have. That's all it is, right?
So I'll say this, and this is kind of segueing back to the idea of like why a lot of people don't have yet to experiment with wiring is the more kind of output, especially the low end side, it sounds great on distortion. Like you can drive a classic overdrive when you have those pickups in series. Or if you don't want that and you can go the opposite spectrum, it's great to have those pickups out of phase with a fuzz. Like there's so much kind of subtleties you can play with that a lot of people just don't, they ignore it. They assume that the pickups are the full picture. Like that's, you change pickups, that's it. The wiring, you just leave it and you do everything else. But what's really amazing about wiring as a whole is you can have the most wide, spectrum of what you want from your guitar. And I always get frustrated because it's always such an overlooked thing.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there.
Yep. Yeah, and it strikes me that it's like, you take your classic Stratocaster, and, on a general setup, you've got 5 different pickup settings, bridge and middle and neck, and then neck. But you can't go bridge and neck, and you can't go bridge and middle in phase or middle and neck in phase. Not to mention what you talked about, Sean, about potentially just bypassing things altogether or going series versus parallel. And one thing that I think is so cool about Gunstreet's approach and about the stuff that we're going to do in the future is it's not just, as you noted, Sean, like, oh, this works the same way as what you have in your guitar right now, but you should go through $100 and 3 frustrating hours of soldering to get our upgrade with these new capacitors. What's cool is bringing all these new options to people. So I can have that same Stratocaster and have all of these sounds that I couldn't have had otherwise. And when you compare it to something like a pedal that I wouldn't, feel bad about spending $200 on, getting that many different configurations of sounds out of my guitar for $100 or $150 even, I think in some ways is a better deal than a new pedal. I can use those on every different setup with every pedal that I have. It like expands the permutations of tone you have available to you substantially, right?
And it doesn't get rid of the original option, right? You still have all the things you had to start with. It's just now there's more out of the same instrument, which is the magical part.
I have one funny Blake experience for when I first met Blake.
No, don't tell that story. Don't tell that story.
No. That's later, much later. When I started talking to Blake and we're getting more into the kind of the weeds of wiring, and we explained that I actually missed the pedal scene. Like when I quit guitar, I shattered, you can kind of see the scar here. I shattered my wrist, so I didn't play guitar for a good 5 years when the pedal scene blew up. But I still did circuit design because I'm just that person. Blake famously told me, and I kind of thought it was funny, but I treat guitar wiring like pedals. Like I wire guitars as if it is a pedal. And I've always kind of like, no, that's true. I think about a guitar and a guitar wiring, and not even just like you're kind of saying with the pickups, is I think about the whole pickups. When I've made my own pickups, I don't associate it with as stock. This is the EQ. I think about, oh, I'm probably going to want a coil cut or tune tap or whatever you want to do with it. I think about it as in the sense of the whole, the pickup is the engine. I'm also going to have to build the drive line. I'm going to have to build every little thing around it. And that's where, I would like to take, Gunstreet's going to probably go in the future, but I think that's where most people need to go in general.
It is kind of taking an approach to what some people look at as just a blob of their guitar, as far as like, yes, the wiring does its thing, and breaking it down the way you would a pedal board is kind of what I meant by that. Like, what guitar players will look at their pedal board and they'll just obsess over each and every unit and where it is in the chain. And they really, a lot of people, especially people that listen to this show, understand that. And they understand like gain staging, and they understand that this goes after this because I want to achieve this. What they don't understand is the same things going on in the cavity of their guitar, because everything in there is selected to do a certain thing, and simply moving one component to a different place, especially when it comes to pickups, can completely change what you're playing. Like changing the magnet location in a pickup, I had no idea it could change. It literally is a different pickup sometimes. And it's these subtle changes that look subtle when you do them, and then you plug in and you're like, that's not subtle at all. That's very drastic, which has been overlooked for a long time, I think.
And a funny thing that strikes me is, a lot of people be like, well, Jimmy Page didn't need a Strymon in order to play live. And you're like, but he did need a customized wiring harness.
It's true. Yeah.
That's right.
For those that don't know. Actually, briefly, just in case it's of interest to anyone out there, Sean, could you tell us about what like the Jimmy Page wiring? I think it's probably the most famous example of customized wiring, what it does.
Yeah, so it's the most famous, and the funny bit is he didn't even design. He didn't have a guitar. It's supposedly a Schecter design that he wanted to use in his '59 Les Paul. But basically, what it does is in the volumes you're going to have coil cutting, and in the neck it usually cuts the screw, and in the bridge it tends to cut. So you have, I don't say cut the screw, but you have the screw pickup, and then in the bridge you have the slug. So you tend to have some of the hum canceling, and then also in the bridge tone you're going to have out of phase. So just change that, and then in the neck tone you're going to have the series switch. So a lot of the things. The Jimmy Page circuit as a whole is what got me addicted to wiring. And it's a phenomenal kit. It's a pain in the butt from a circuit point because it's super, super complex. But if you like options and you like the idea of getting whatever sound, in one of our blogs, I famously said that imagine a guitar and it's a blurry picture. With the Jimmy Page kit, you can basically fine tune it to get a very similar sound.
Yep. And for the people out there that don't know, and Blake, I guess your listeners are all pretty, they know everything about everything guitar-wise. But what we're talking about there when we say
they do.
Screw versus slug, on a humbucker, you have two coils that come together out of phase. Am I right? Correct me when I'm wrong, Sean, because this is your world more than mine.
They're two coils, and they are wound in the same direction, but you're passing it through two polarity fields, which causes a hum canceling frequency. It's basically like out of phase, but kind of not.
Okay,
similar.
Thank you. You know more about these things than I, for sure. But yeah, so when you take one side and cancel out the other, you basically have something of a single coil sound out of a humbucker guitar, which a lot of people didn't know you could get. With a humbucker, which is what's so cool about doing that coil tapping. That's what we call that. I just wanted to highlight that in case anyone's like, "What on earth are you talking about?"
Coil cutting, coil tapping, coil
and we said the screw and the slug. If you're familiar with an open humbucker, you can see all those little screws in there. Those are screws,
which are magnets.
The other side is slugs, which are magnetized.
Yes.
So anyway, wanted to explain that slightly. But that's so cool. I honestly, I read about that in Guitar World when I was 13, but didn't there was not a Gunstreet I could have ordered that from back then. I would have been going to Radio Shack and being like, "Hi, how do I make my Les Paul sound like Jimmy Page?" And they would have kicked me out.
They would have said, "Well, son, you need to become Jimmy Page."
Yeah, well, right. And maybe there's some truth to that. But that's so cool. And I'm curious what he used those individual sounds for. I've never really heard like a read up of like, on Black Dog, he'd always put things into series.
I couldn't find any info. I bet you there's some, Zeppelin fans that are screaming at me saying like, oh, he did all this. From what I understand, it was mainly for his tour. It's usually because when they're recording, he could use whatever guitar he wanted. But
he'd always use a Telecaster recording.
Yeah. And then in the tour, he can use that because you can get that really sweet, like twangy sound from that setup.
Yep. I would assume it's like some of that early Zeppelin stuff, like Whole Lotta Love and stuff that you really hear that like single coil sound on the recording. But I have no idea what I'm talking about, everyone out there. So I'm probably wrong. Don't believe me.
I have heard a rumor that that Jimmy Page's Telecaster has sold more Les Pauls than any other guitar in history. So,
that's probably about right. That's also true of Slash's Not Les Paul, Les Paul.
Yeah, that's right. It was like
Max.
A Tokai or something.
No, it was a Max. A Max custom. Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Wow. That's incredible.
I did, because again, we're the same. All of us are relatively the same age. And after reading that same article, I did search out some guy on the internet and that flopped in my face. But after getting that, I was able to I would try my hardest to get that Whole Lotta Love sound, which literally putting them both in single coil and out of phase. And you get close. You can get kind of close, but it's never right.
It strikes me, though, that, as I look at the wiring world, to which I've been an outsider until very recently, so it's all a little fresh for me, but most of the wiring companies out there offer some iteration of the Jimmy Page wiring setup, but then all of their other wiring kits are just a drop-in replacement with no other functionality, which I find odd. There's not like nobody seems to make like a Black Dog for Strat that I have seen. I could be wrong.
You could technically make it, but the key thing is the functionality of it, right? So you do want the two humbuckers. You do want that. Me being me, I have made mini kits for someone to put that same setup in a Strat, but it ended up being an HH Strat. Sure. a lot of
but even that, I just mean like even just the series parallel or the in and out of phase, a lot of things don't seem to offer that.
Well, it's a weird and I'll be upfront and say I'm not the most technical. I know there's a lot of people who could wire me under the table, but for your average person who sells, right?
No, that sounds terrible.
If I disappear, it was them, I swear. But to your average seller who does this lot of stuff, they're like me 20 years ago, where they just search on the forum and they find random diagrams and they just kind of copy it. And a lot of times there's nothing wrong with that. That's literally how I started. Yeah. But there's a point where you kind of have to know when circuit designing, you got to know why you put this architecture here and that architecture there, to the point where a lot of people can't go out of that original diagram. And that's the weirdness with this industry. So there is people who definitely do it, but no one who probably sells it on a professional level. You could probably find a really good tech in some small area, but
it's not too unlike the pedal world, in which there are a million tube screamer variants, but there's not very many allowed to use. Wampler as an example, he just came out with the Phenom distortion, which is a completely original distortion circuit. There's a lot fewer of those than there are modified versions of things that are old or just straight up tube screamers that aren't even modified. And I love all of that. I'm a hopeless pedal addict. I want all of the pedals ever, but it is a lot less common to find somebody that, like Brian, who you could say, I want an original circuit that does this, and he can give that to you, something that's never really existed before, versus finding old diagrams and just going off of that.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I will say one thing: if you're the person who likes to do to find random diagrams, online diagrams are like guitar tabs. They're very, very close. But if you don't have the know-how to find some of it, you're gonna like it will work, but a lot of times it'll be like just wrong enough that it's going to be annoying.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's me on this
100%.
podcast, actually. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Scott, maybe this is a good time to shove on the Mr. Business hat again, because we've talked a lot about the.
Don't have any hats around here.
Oh man, I'm the only hatted man in here. But maybe this would be a good time to kind of segue a little bit away. Like we talked about, the principles behind the companies and the things that made sense on just kind of a personal level, the things that we all, hold dear as far as running a gear company goes. But I think for me, what made a lot of sense was me getting involved with Sean on a professional level. He is about at the same place business wise as when I got involved with you. And from my perspective, I'm thinking, well, cool. This is not identical in any way, shape, or form. But it is in the same industry. And it's something that we all have a very good understanding of the end result of. And I feel like we can get through this process together much more fluidly and much more quickly than when you and I were kind of thrashing it out in the beginning, trying to figure out like, what guitar strings? What is this? What's a guitar string?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the funny thing reflecting on certainly like the Stringjoy journey is it has been it's been a little over 8 years now. And it's kind of like been being in a protracted version of business school where, certainly like those first couple of years, you're just fighting tooth and nail to find anybody that will try your product and can buy it and, hopefully become somebody to really kind of proselytize how good it is to other people. But then you grow and you obviously encounter new and exciting challenges at every step along the way. And we've been able to see those grow and adapt and change and kind of get through them. I mean, my general assumption is if I had to do Stringjoy again with what I know now, I think I could do it in like 2 or 3 years to get to where we're at now instead of 8 years. But that's life. That's how it goes. That's how you're, that's how you learn things, right? And so kind of our calculation is that with where Sean was at, we could help accelerate that. And it's worth noting too, in case anyone has the wrong idea, that we didn't buy Sean out 100%. We're partnered up together on it. So it's not like
too
that.
much my baby.
Sean is not our corporate slave who does whatever we want. We are partners in it. Which I think is important to know. But the idea was that, I think we can bring a lot of wisdom to that side of things and really just like know, hey, here's what we did at this stage. Here's something we did wrong at this stage and we should do differently this time.
Yeah.
Or, here's something we wish we had known at the time. And there's a lot of those opportunities. And something that I think is kind of funny that a lot of people may not know is that Sean's actually run, effectively a much larger business than we are right now. And so, well, Sean, I guess I should let you speak to that slightly.
Yeah. So I'm in this weird thing where previous to this, I managed 2 very large liquor stores. And when I say liquor stores, most people think of like your average corner store. That is far from the case. One, Oregon is a controlled state, so we aren't as rough and rowdy. But I had one store that
I've seen Oregon get plenty rough and rowdy.
Well, that's true, especially around Blake's neighborhood. Basically, one store we had that we were actually the top 3 selling in the entire state. That's out of like 300 or 400 stores. We are doing anywhere from 12 to 18 million a year in sales. And then the other store is actually one of the largest square footage in Oregon, and that was probably another 8 to 12 million a year. So I have a very I don't want to say like I have enough of a how to run a business at a very large scales, 25 employees, 2 locations, 2 different business models. I have enough of that to kind of get to a spot where I'm very comfortable. But what I don't have the skill set, and why I really wanted to work with Blake and Scott, is I've never built a business from scratch. I've gotten Gunstreet. I mean, since the last time I've been on Blake's podcast, I do what I did that entire year within a month and a half, which is just phenomenal from how short my experience with Gunstreet has been. But you guys, you've been through the ringer and got to go through some of the stuff that, as I'm scaling up, I'm dealing with more kind of complexities that I can call you guys, go, what should I do on this one? This is what I think from a business standpoint. This is the strategy I say. But then you go, oh, we did that. You should probably try something different. So it's one of those ones where, yes, I am too much of a control freak. Hence why you probably see I'm do these weird complex circuits. But I never wanted to have parents. I never wanted to have a parent figure to be like, you can't do this. I needed partners, because this market is a very complex market. This industry, I mean, it's really easy to say it's $8 in parts, right? But people don't take in consideration of how much complexity it comes to just making sure the product is correct, just making sure that the person is going to install it correctly and not destroy it and then claim it's your fault. There's so many kind of complexities that it's hard for one person to do. And I wanted to work with people who, have experience in this and who have very great insights in general, that it just, again, it made more sense. Like we said earlier, I've literally talked for Blake like 5 hours talking about business stuff, just naturally, not like, I call him for help. It just comes out.
Well, it'll be like, hey, did you see this one thing? Yeah, Fender did X, Y, Z here, and that's kind of weird. And then that's where it starts. And then it's like, also conversion rates, huh?
Yeah. It's also worth noting on the parts thing. I mean, strings are $1 in parts, but if I mail you a bag with a bunch of wire, you're not going to have a very good time.
Yeah, just some ball ends, different pieces of wire.
I feel like it's weird that sort of argument gets tossed around more in like the pedal amp wiring space than it does in my world, but it's not too different. Like it's all in the expertise of designing something and the expertise of building something and building it right. I mean, hell, you can make a Gibson Les Paul for a couple $100. Well, and I think they yeah, exactly, right? Like you're paying for expertise and you're paying for people's designs and how they make things. And that's just like the way of the world. I've never understood why that argument takes more hold in the pedal space than it does.
A car is only like $5,000 in parts. I don't know why.
That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. You could say this of anything, And if you want to do that and be Mr. DIY and everything, no one's stopping you. At all, but most people don't do that. Partly because it's a bunch of time, and you don't want to spend 6 hours every week making your set of guitar strings, or your wiring harness for that matter.
We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby, because let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblissaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
I'd say, or 20 years learning about how circuit architecture works, and
100%.
why you wire a volume pot a certain way.
Mhm.
No, I get it, and I don't want to belittle people who use that argument, which it's fine. I mean, you got to start somewhere, but it is a very complex thing. It's really easy to assume that this is an easy industry when there's so much complexity that makes it very challenging.
Oh yeah,
Well,
and I mean, again, anyone can do that if they want to. I've got one friend who every time we go out to eat somewhere, he can't really enjoy something really good because he's like, I could have made this at home for $1. And I'm like, well, there's no one stopping you. You didn't invite me over. But also, you probably can't.
I'll give you $3 for you to make that for me.
Yeah, I'm almost exactly, or else I'd be a customer. I'm almost certain that you can't do that. Sorry.
And there's other things about the guitar market too, right? There's certain expectations that are set, and it's like, oh yeah, I could do that for however X amount of parts with any product. Every single piece of the guitar industry, somebody has said, well, that's not worth it because I could do that with blah 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 blah. I could build that in my uncle's shed, and like that is the reality. Probably not. Could you bolt together a very nice playing parts caster? Probably, but it's going to take you a while to do. And you want to make sure that you're sourcing all the stuff, and like it's time that you pay for with these things. Everyone seems to forget that people get paid hourly to do things, and and everyone wants everyone to get compensated.
But fortunately,
fairly.
Labor's never been cheaper than it is now.
That's right.
oh wait.
But that's the thing.
You're exactly right.
Yeah,
and if you want good people, it costs you money.
Yeah, you want good people, and you want to take care of them appropriately, and all of that stuff, and that is all built into the thing that you make, and hopefully enough people enjoy that thing that you can continue to make that for other people moving forward. And it's just the parts argument has always been so silly because it applies to every business. Like I'm sure this piece of paper I could make for fractions of a penny, but I don't own a paper mill, so.
Yeah,
we used to actually get that in the liquor store. Mm-hmm. We used to get the person who said, "Oh, I have my own still. I don't make any liquor. I just buy this because so and so wanted it." I'm like, okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
But
you're also not supposed to do that. But that's neither here nor there.
No, you can in Oregon. It's just small batches.
Is that right?
Yeah, just small batches. I can't remember the exact amount because I'm getting away from that industry enough to forget.
From the moonshining industry.
Yeah, exactly. That's my great grandfather. Don't tell anyone. No, you can make it, and there's actually I know a lot of friends, especially in the craft scene, that did it for fun, and then all of a sudden they blew up and they started their own craft beers. And like my wife's friend was sorry, my Google just went off. My wife's friend works as she's one of the top RD distillers for, I want to say Riverside, one of the local ones that everyone loves. And it just, again, started out as a love, did really, really well, obsessed with it. And I think that's the one cool thing about, you can use that argument, and sure, but some people do blow up from that.
Yeah, I guess that is the similarity between anything craft related. And Scott and I were talking about this yesterday a little bit. And like specifically in the guitar space, is you really have to love it. Otherwise, there's no real reason to keep beating your head against the wall in this industry. If you're just after just like all the Benjamins, you should really probably find a different niche to get into. But the reality is the people who do well in this industry, by and large, there are a few exceptions, they love it. They love music. They love guitar specifically. They love rock and roll, or they love some aspect of it so much that they want to just shove their way into it, and they just don't really have a choice because their passion pushes them. And I think there's a few guys on this podcast that might know something about that. I don't know.
I can say that my dad thinks I'm crazy because I left a very high position business with, if I had stayed, be making 5-6 times what I'm going to be making, in the next probably 5 years to do this. But it's something I really love. It's something I've always obsessed about. I mean, it's just, there's so much. I would rather do this and make little money than do anything else because it's just all I know.
Mm-hmm.
It's all I can think about.
100%. Yeah, I wouldn't trade Stringjoy for a cement company that does 10 times the amount in revenue. There's just something
I know
a lot
you stay
cooler
up late thinking about cement and its different properties.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, if it had an application of guitar strings, I would. But that's what's beautiful about this industry, right? It's a bug and it bites you, and like there's just something so cool about kind of delivering a product to market that you've put all this time and thought into. And then, like logging in and seeing people on like the gear page, like talking about it and being like, this is all a sham. They're a huckster. Don't believe any of this. Anyway, sorry, that was a joke.
I've always
when
thought
I
about
get on the gear page, what they say there is that there's this big conspiracy that Stringjoy is actually in California, which we've talked about on the show probably before. It's my favorite. I don't think I'm important enough to merit there being a conspiracy over me, but it makes me happy, and I love that the inference that somehow it would be cheaper in some insidious way for me to operate a business in California than Tennessee, and that for some reason I would feel it necessary to hide that I'm in California and in Tennessee. It's pretty great. It makes me happy.
I feel like you'd be way more tan if you lived in California.
Yeah, and way more poor also.
The one design theory I've always I also come from a business family. Like it sounds really goober to say, but like my family's owned a business since 1850, something like that. So one of my grandpa's classic line is, a product is a magic trick. And if you do the right calculated moves to the consumer, it is real magic. If you screw up, someone's going to hate you and talk about it. But you have to get that emotion because it is real magic. It is just as real as anything else.
Huh. I love that. That's so cool.
Real magic exists. Wow.
Real magic exists.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that. So we are getting close to the end of the episode, and I'm probably not going to go into the classic questions on this one since that seems a bit redundant with both of you. But
I hate pizza.
Yeah, you guys hate pizza. I know. I've seen it. But I do think it's probably worth maybe just kind of putting out there into the universe, even if it ends up in a slightly different form. Like, what do you... I know this sounds weird, me asking this of you guys since we talk about it so much, but for the public, what do you two see as the future here for Gunstreet as a company? And, what kind of roles are you planning on filling moving forward, both of you?
Sean, you take the lead.
I've always been very vocal about what my dream of Gunstreet is. And it's very, very big, is I really want to take wiring, not just Gunstreet, but just the wiring aspect of the industry out of the kind of really dated Stone Age and get it into again, Gunstreet I try to make a lot of educational posts so I can inspire people to learn more. And I would love to see it get out of this idea of these paper and oil capacitors sound so much better for that woman tone, to the point where, if I use this exact value, I can circuit design and get it to have a lot of amazing people making a lot of cool and unique circuits. And that's where my goal with Gunstreet has always been, is take it into the place where I think it deserves, and creating custom circuits, kind of sounds that you don't usually get to have, and have you, the person, kind of be able to do that without, someone, pushing you along.
100%. On my end, just kind of echoing what Sean said, I think that one thing that is central with our approach is like if we go into a different area of the guitar world, we want to make something new and different and be able to like make a substantial splash. People might not know this, but we've been propositioned a great many times from people wanting to buy our company, other players in the business and such. And the thing there is almost every time we get the sense that their dream for it's a lot smaller than ours. They're like, oh, this is great. It's a nice little string company. You're like, oh, no. We're not, 1/10 or barely 100th the company we want to be. We're growing all the time and want to really like expand that. And so anyway, we take the same approach with Gunstreet. I think it'd be easy to look at this as like, oh, this will be a nice little thing that we can sell to some of our existing customers and it'll accentuate it. But we want to change the way the wiring market works, the same way that Sean talked about. And I see huge opportunity in how we integrate pickups into that as well. How we can build pickups that have the ability to say, for example, coil tap very well, or do other things alongside wiring harnesses, so that we can not just own the things that you're actually manipulating and playing on the guitar, but also the parts of the guitar that pick up that sound and that filter that into what hits your amp. For us, it's just kind of expanding the areas of your guitar that we can touch and the ways in which we can give you more options to really make that kind of sound your own.
That was beautiful.
Oh,
Oh, man. Getting a bit misty over here. Well, no, guys, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and explain all this, because I know as soon as this goes live, people are going to be like, wait, what? Huh? Who? When? Why?
Well, and that's we should actually probably address that briefly in terms of mechanics. So it's like we said, Gunstreet exists on its own accord. We're partners with it, and you'll hear about it from Stringjoy, here and there, but it's not a thing where it's like you can only buy Gunstreet through the Stringjoy website or anything like that at all.
No.
Gunstreet.co will be the main hub for everything Gunstreet. And you'll definitely hear us talking about each other when it makes sense. But, in all ways, we want to be very, very respectful of the Gunstreet brand, mission, and ethos. So it's not in any way like it's just going to be like rolled in as Stringjoy wiring harnesses or anything like that at all.
Yeah, I guess it's very important to note that while, now, as I said in the beginning, Sean and Gunstreet is a part of the family, it's still his show over there.
Yep.
We're not in his hair every day, just like, hey, what's this? Hey, what? Hey, now. No. No, it's like, it's very much still his thing. We just wanted to be there in an official capacity to be able to provide support and expand on what he's already doing. And that's really the whole goal. And if anybody's worried that all of a sudden, now it's all going to be stupid because Blake and Scott are involved. It's like, no, if it goes stupid, it's still Sean's fault.
It's my fault. It's completely my fault.
But to that
if anything
point,
goes wrong,
we'll just share in the
me.
downside now.
That's right.
Exactly.
But to that point, if you ask Blake or I questions about wiring, we will sound exactly as dumb as we always would have.
Yes.
So don't do that.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
we're learning very quickly, but Sean is the master.
Yes. What I will probably say is, if I know it, I will tell you, but I'll most likely say, I don't know. Ask Sean. That's what I will say. So,
just like strings, I don't know enough to say anything about strings.
Yeah, I mean, I have a similar story. I don't know. Ask Scott. Why are you asking me? I'm getting better though. Well,
the
guys,
same thing happens when people ask me about pizza.
You know where to send them. Give me a call. I'll talk for 4 hours about the intricacies of sourdough and how different fermentation times can impact the crust quality. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. But
don't get them started on cheese.
Cheese. Well, San Marzano. It's okay. Guys, thank you for coming on. This was a great chat, and I think we can probably sign off if unless you guys got anything else you want to say at the moment.
No, other than just thank you guys. This has actually been you've been really excellent with this. It's very scary when you have other people come on, and you guys have really showed that it is, again, you believe in the Gunstreet mythos.
100%. Wait, did you buy Mythos too?
Oh, wait, hold on, wait.
Too soon.
Zach, are
Just
you in
kidding.
here? What's going on?
But 100%, Sean. That's awesome to hear. And I'm really excited about where this can go. So to anyone who's kind of tuned in to listen to us talk about this, thank you for checking in. We're excited about where this can all can go from here.
Yeah, sounds good.
And thank you for having us over for yet another sleepover, Blake.
Yeah, that's right.
Always nice to be here on the Tone Mob.
Yeah, you guys can come on anytime at all. All right, Sean, I have to come bring a guitar over to your house. I screwed up the wiring in it. I'll see you shortly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody. For Sean and Scott, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you have it. We are super stoked that this is finally out there and that this is coming together at long last. We've been working on this for so long. So excited that it is finally official and out and happening. And you can look forward to some really fun stuff very, very soon. We're already working hard on some new products that I think you're really going to enjoy, which we hinted at in the episode. And thank you for all of the support. You know, anytime you buy from anybody sponsoring this show the way Gunstreet did for so long, or now buying from Gunstreet or Stringjoy, directly helps me, directly helps keep this thing going. And this is my favorite thing I get to do. So thank you so much for allowing me to be able to do that. I really, really appreciate it. So yeah, more cool stuff on the way. Oh, and it's worth noting, if you are hearing this on Monday, the day it dropped, you're actually getting a little bit of a sneak peek because the official announcement is going out Tuesday. So there'll be a newsletter and some social stuff and all that going out on Tuesday. So you're getting a little bit of a behind the scenes peek at something that's really cool and really, really exciting for all of us. So thank you so much. And again, in the spirit of supporting the podcast, if you so choose to, over on Patreon, I'm talking to Sean for about an hour about some pretty actually intense subjects. We start lighthearted with the UFO stuff. We ended up actually getting fairly heavy. And also, it's worth noting, if you don't know Sean, if this is your first time hearing Sean, you really should go back to the first time he came on this podcast because he really went deep on that episode. That's when we really, really hit it off. And I would highly suggest going back to that episode and checking it out. It's pretty old. It's probably 3 or 4 years old, but it's still relevant. It's still his story. And I think it'll still resonate with a lot of people. If you're already familiar with Sean, you're going to love this week's Patreon. You really are. So for $5 a month, you can support the show and get extra bonus content beamed directly to your ears every single week. And additionally, you'll get the ad-free feed of the podcast. If you just want the ad-free feed, you can get that for $3 a month. And I will really, really appreciate anything I can get over there. That really means a lot. And it comes back and directly keeps this show on the interwebs. Yeah, that's probably more correct. It's not on the airwaves, but I guess it's vibrating the airwaves and making it to your ears. So that counts. Sure. Let's call it that. Anyway, I hope you are all good. I hope this is valuable for you. And I will talk to you on the internet very, very soon. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gunstreet Wiring Shop. Yes, Gunstreet Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gunstreet as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gunstreet harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
Well, hey friends, my name is Zach Lupiton. You may know me from the band Dust Bowl Revival, but I also host a music discovery podcast called The Show on the Road. For the last 5 seasons, I've been able to dive deep and have intimate chats with folks like the Lumineers, Ani DeFranco, Wolfpack, Keb Mo, Lake Street Dive, Bela Fleck, and more. So guess what? After 150 conversations with some of my favorite songwriters from around the world, we are bringing brand new episodes to the Osiris Network. New interviews and intimate acoustic performances will be coming at you this summer. And which episodes are coming next, you ask?
I am Zach Goody, the lead singer for the band Smash Mouth.
Our band is called Milky Chance. We are based in Berlin.
My name is David Shaw. I sing and write songs with my band, The Revivalists.
Trust me, these conversations go some wild places. So subscribe to The Show on the Road on Osiris, and we'll see you soon.